Tonight in 9 News, vaccine chaos. Pubs and restaurants set to remain closed after last-minute rule changes for staff. Joyful reunions at the airport as quarantine from New South Wales is scrapped. Victoria within reach of 70%. How to get tickets to the Cup and the comeback concert. A sinister twist in the search for little Cleo. Former cricket star Michael Slater charged with domestic violence. And the jockey turned real estate agent having a different crack at the Cox Plate.
This is Melbourne's 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
Good evening. With Victoria tantalisingly close to the magic 70% vaccination mark, the hospitality industry has suffered a bitter blow over mandatory jabs for staff. In the countdown to Freedom Friday, some venue owners have had to cancel bookings and keep their doors closed. Mimi Becker leads our coverage.
Freedom's so close you can almost taste it, but as businesses prepare to welcome sit-down diners, a bitter blow.
It shot us to pieces because we've done everything by the book.
For many venues, opening on Friday is now no longer an option. Mark Mitzi has had to cancel close to 150 bookings across the weekend after finding out his staff must be fully vaxxed.
Everybody's booked in for their second jab and we're ready to go, but that's not going to happen. So we're not going to be able to open in the restaurants for at least another 3 weeks.
Initially, the vaccine mandate required authorised workers, including hospitality staff, to have one dose by Friday and their second shot booked before November 26. But the roadmap announced on Sunday states all hospitality staff must now be fully vaccinated before venues can reopen.
It will be bizarre to be in a world where, we've said you can only be a customer in these places if you're fully vaccinated, but the staff somehow don't need to be vaccinated. That doesn't really stack up.
By comparison, construction workers must be fully vaxxed by November 13, while teachers have until November 29 to be double dosed.
Hospitality has copped enough throughout this pandemic. It's hard enough. There is a staff shortage. There is a skill shortage.
It's definitely disheartening when you have the green light to go ahead. You can get back into it, and again, it's just the carpet's ripped out from underneath you.
Sous chef David Warren has had one dose of the COVID vaccine. He's helping prepare for reopening, but won't be able to work until he gets his second shot weeks from now.
Frustrated, a little bit brokenhearted, because we just want to get back to doing what we love.
But health officials are making no apologies.
We'd expect that people who are now being asked to please come back into work are the first ones to have got themselves organised to get themselves fully vaccinated so they can serve their customers.
Mimi's at Jeff Shedd this evening. Mimi, we've hit a very important milestone.
Pete, 70% of Victorians aged 16 and over are now fully vaccinated. That double dose milestone will be made official tomorrow, but it's safe to say that we've got there today. Yesterday, 101,000 jabs were administered, and it's expected that today would have been just as busy at vaccination hubs right across the state. We're also inching closer to a 90% single dose vaccination milestone, so it shows Victorians are still rolling up their sleeves ready for reopening. Pete?
Mimi Becker reporting. Melbourne will mark the first week out of lockdown with an almighty party at the Sydney Myer Music Bowl. Reid Butler's there. Reid, 4,000 people are invited.
It's amazing to think, Pete, that after all this time in lockdown, thousands next week will be here at the bowl for this concert. The Fully Vaxxed event is part of a trial from the Victorian government, and it's one of many great things we've got to look forward to.
It's Melbourne's comeback concert, from lockdown to rocking the town. In just 10 days, a 4,000 strong, fully vaccinated crowd will be at the Sydney Myer Music Bowl.
I haven't been this excited since I got tickets to see Cold Chisel play at Festival Hall. It is going to be that big.
Masks are mandatory unless you're eating and drinking, and tickets go on sale on Friday at 3 p.m. on the Arts Centre Melbourne website. The lineup includes Baker Boy, Grace Cummings and Vicar and Linda Bull.
And two bands with a local and international following, Amel and the Sniffers, as well as King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
This wizard's excited too.
Has been a lot of bad days over the last 4 months, but today is a good day.
That's because it's now official. Harry Potter and the Cursed Child will return to the stage from Thursday, the 18th of November.
I just can't wait to get back in there and get stuck in and get our audiences back.
While that show goes on, it's still curtains for indoor swimming pools. Opposition leader Matthew Guy poolside in Heidelberg demanding they reopen now Victoria's at 70% double dosed.
We must open, like New South Wales have, pools for kids to learn to swim, for their own safety, for their parents' peace of mind.
We're an industry that saves lives. We're not going to put our children's lives at risk by reopening.
But this outdoor swimming, or rather surfing pool, is riding the freedom wave. While a lucky few got to enjoy the water today, Urban Surf in Tullamarine will reopen to the public on Saturday morning.
We've got 25 surfers coming an hour, and we're going to rotate through to keep that 50 maximum.
Outdoor attractions can welcome 500 people when we hit the 80% double dose target. That means Urban Surf will be again running at capacity in just over a week's time.
Back to normal for us, and we're very thankful and lucky for it.
We've had our fair share of wipeouts. Now it's time to come up for air. Reid Butler, 9 News.
500 precious tickets to the Melbourne Cup will be made available to the public when a crowd of 10,000 returns to the great race after a year of no spectators. Live to Alicia Muling at Flemington. Alicia, how can punters get their hands on tickets?
Well, Pete, you have 9 days to get yourself very familiar with the Ticketek website, because that is the only way you will be able to get general admission tickets to the Cup, to Oaks Day and to Stakes Day. Now, normally, as we know, there'd be 100,000 people here at Flemington on Cup Day. That, of course, has been cut down to just 10,000 as the VRC tries to get these allocated tickets out fairly.
It's been a significant challenge to work out an appropriate allocation of the 10,000 permitted attendance, and the team has done that over the last few weeks.
So there are 7,000 tickets for VRC members. There'll be 2,500 tickets for horse owners, corporate partners and sponsors, with just 500 tickets left for general admission. If you are lucky enough to get your hands on one, you'll have to fork out $120. You'll need to be double dosed, wear a mask both inside and outside, and punters will be restricted to separate zones. Now, the big question is whether there will be crowds here on Derby Day, which is on October 30. The VRC is hopeful of that. They're still working with the state government. So if you do want to get your hands on general admission tickets, Pete, put a reminder in your phone, do whatever you need to do. They go on sale next Friday.
Thank you, Alicia Muling. Quarantine has officially been scrapped for anyone flying into Melbourne from Sydney. The new rules mean fully vaccinated travellers only need an orange zone permit, paving the way for reunions months in the making. State political reporter Mark Santomartino.
They've traded the harbour city for lockdown, but as passengers rolled down the escalators to collect their bags, normal felt closer than it has in months.
We've had our negative tests, we're vaccinated and ready to give our family a big hug.
The kids are very excited to meet their little cousin and can't wait.
Quarantine no longer applies for anyone arriving from a red zone like Sydney. 15-year-old Rose and Dad Emmanuel booked tickets on the first flight they could after months fighting for an exemption to take part in a medical trial.
It was very important because if we didn't make the cut-off date, then she couldn't be enrolled.
It's really good and I'm happy to be here.
London will be added to the arrivals board next week. Passengers on that special flight were meant to take part in a home quarantine trial. 7 days that could be cut to 0 if Victoria matches New South Wales.
We are standing on the cusp of a new dawn, of new freedoms and liberties.
Lockdown ends in fewer than 30 hours, but the curfew's waiting for those thinking of cutting the wait from 2 sleeps to 1 for a midnight pint.
There's no leave pass between 9 p.m. and midnight tomorrow night. It's not a mass freedom day. It's not a mass let's go completely nuts. There is still a significant risk.
Another 1,841 Victorians have tested positive. Sadly, 12 with COVID have died. But fewer than 4% of the state's 22,000 active cases are in hospital, and fewer than 1% are getting intensive care.
You know why? Because of vaccination. So on that statistic, that should give us reassurance that we can open up at the same pace as New South Wales.
Despite being ordered by the Office of the Victorian Information Commissioner to release more than 100 pages of health advice used to lock the city down, the state government wasn't promising anything today.
The Department of Health is considering that request and will respond accordingly in due course.
If your child is locked out of school,
If your business has been slammed shut, you're entitled to know why.
Mark Santomartino, 9 News.
West Australian police have made a shock revelation about the search for little Cleo Smith. Up to 20 sex offenders live near the campsite where she vanished. As Mia Edgerton-Warburton explains, the Defence Force is now helping to solve the 5-day mystery.
The boots are on the ground. Soldiers now scouring a remote WA campground for 4-year-old Cleo Smith. Drones are in the sky too, trying to solve a mystery that could be an abduction, as police reveal up to 20 registered sex offenders live nearby.
We want to assure Cleo's family and the broader community that police are throwing everything we can at this.
Cleo's parents are heartbroken.
She would be terrified. She would be so scared. She would never leave us. She would never leave the tent.
Today, they were back monitoring the search near Carnarvon, waiting for any information as police investigate reports of a screeching car around the time the 4-year-old disappeared.
We haven't ruled it out already. It's a little bit unsubstantiated.
Little Cleo was last seen at 1:30 Saturday morning, waking her mother to ask for a drink of water. The 4-year-old went to sleep in her pink pyjamas. By morning, she and her sleeping bag were gone. That's a 5-hour window. By car, she could have travelled as far north as Onslow, as far south as Kalbarri, and edging towards Tom Price in the east.
You know, the most likely scenario, sadly, is that she has been taken.
We're not really finding much that tends to give us an impression one way or the other.
This is cattle country, and right across this remote part of WA, cattle grids stretch across roads. These crossings have cameras a lot of the time, and any snapshots they take of licence plates could provide crucial clues to investigators who are trying to bring a little girl home.
You know, every time we get a call, we just always think, like, is this our call that she's home?
Mia Edgerton-Warburton, 9 News.
Former cricketer Michael Slater is in trouble over alleged domestic violence offences. Lizzie Pearl reports he's accused of stalking or intimidating his partner and harassing her by phone.
Michael Slater, out of Manly Police Station, not much to say, leaving the talking to his lawyer.
Michael's got nothing to say. He's exercising his right to silence. He'll be at court on the 11th at Waverley. If we could please just get through.
Michael, do you have a temper problem? Michael, did you do anything wrong?
Happened last week.
Bundled into the front of a waiting BMW, the 51-year-old charged with domestic violence offences. There's no allegations of any physical outburst against his partner, rather using a mobile phone to menace, harass or offend her, and stalking or intimidation, intending fear or physical harm. Slater became a household name in the 90s and early 2000s, a star with the bat.
Oh, and he's gone over the top of mid-off, and that's a great shot.
Before a successful transition into the commentary box, first at Channel 9.
Chips in, takes it! That is a blinder from Nathan Lyon!
Then 7. 2021 hasn't been the best of years for Michael Slater. He lost his deal at 7 after a tweet in May criticising the federal government's treatment of Aussies stranded in COVID-ravaged India, saying the PM had blood on his hands. 7 tore up his contract, putting it down to a budget issue. Yesterday, an incident was reported to Eastern Suburbs Police, which is alleged to have happened last Tuesday. This morning, detectives were at the cricket star's Manly home. Michael Slater spent close to 6 hours under arrest here at Manly Police Station. He'll spend the next few weeks preparing his case, facing Waverley Court in November.
Michael, do you have a temper problem?
Lizzie Pearl, 9 News.
He's had 4 attempts at winning the Cox Plate, and on Saturday, Stephen Baster will be hoping it's 5th time lucky, not as a jockey, but as an owner. Baster retired from racing in 2019, but as Tony Jones discovered, he has plenty on his plate.
He's gone from the saddle to sales.
Full-size tennis court, floodlit basketball.
Having hung up his silks 3 years ago, former jockey Stephen Baster is now living the dream on the Mornington Peninsula and selling the dream.
It's a beautiful 2.5 acre property. It's got all the bells and whistles, you know, swimming pool, tennis court, beautiful, quiet cul-de-sac.
And while real estate offers its own degree of adrenaline, it's not quite the rush of racing.
And Gay Waterhouse takes the Oaks for the first time.
14 Group 1 victories in a 28-year career. Retirement has been a wake-up call. Or maybe not.
I used to get up at 2:50 for a long, long time and go down and ride work for Gay at Flemington at 4 o'clock. And now I'm lucky to be up at 6:30, so it's nice.
On Saturday, Basta delves back into racing, this time as a part owner of Cox Plate hopeful Callsign Mav. Although an outsider, the 5-year-old might allow Basta to improve on his own Cox Plate record.
I'm not very good. I think I had about 4 rides in it. God's Own was probably my best ride, but didn't give it the best ride. He tracked up behind Mackay Diva and got blown away.
Come 5:10 on Saturday afternoon, Stevie Basta, albeit from the couch at home, will be in full voice cheering on Callsign Mav. But he'll need to keep those vocal cords in check as he looks to take the next step in his real estate career, auctioneering.
I'm busy doing my auction course with Marshall White at the moment, and I probably will get into it. Little man with a big voice, so...
Tony Jones, 9 News.
And Tony's here now with a look ahead to more sport.
Thanks, Pete. Good evening. And I've got to tell you, Stephen Basta has got some pretty stiff competition in the Cox Plate because the hot favourite, while he's cool and calm, not so much his trainer.
It's very special. Obviously a bit nerve-wracking. Didn't sort of dream of being in this position.
A need for speed in Geelong now for a crack at the Melbourne Cup. The Ben Simmons saga takes another ugly turn. Liverpool gets the job done, so why was Jurgen seeing red? And 3 cheers to this bloke. But did the beers actually survive? That's all coming up a little later on in sport, Pete. A very sobering thought, that one.
Indeed. Thank you, Tony. Up next, a convicted terrorist strikes again, this time stabbing a fellow prisoner. Plus, a big boost for booster shots. But what brought the health minister to tears? And freak hailstorms batter the east coast. A convicted terrorist who stabbed her homestay host has pleaded guilty to trying to kill a fellow prisoner. A judge heard Momina Shoma was proud of her actions and was inspired by Islamic State. More from Maggie Rayworth.
A decades-long jail sentence not enough to deter convicted terrorist Momina Shoma from offending again. The extremist attacked a fellow prisoner last October, stabbing her with this pair of garden shears. Her victim survived the attack, needing just 5 stitches. The 28-year-old faced the Victorian Supreme Court today. She has pleaded guilty to engaging in a terrorist act while incarcerated at Ravenhall Jail. Defence lawyer Tim Marsh saying the reason why Ms Shoma makes those admissions is because she's proud of what she did. Prosecutor Brett Sonnet recited parts of the victim impact statement. The victim is suffering significant emotional effects from the offence, suffering flashbacks. Momina Shoma is serving a 42-year sentence in the Dame Phyllis Frost Women's Prison with an on-parole period of 31.5 years after engaging in a terror act in February 2019. She was in Australia on a student visa for 8 days when she attacked her homestay host with a kitchen knife. Shoma chanted Allah Akbar as she stabbed him in the neck in front of his 5-year-old daughter. The court heard Momina Shoma attempted to declare her allegiance to Allah from prison in letters to her father and sister. The letters were intercepted by prison staff as the content was dangerous and inappropriate. Momina Shoma will be sentenced at a later date. Maggie Rayworth, 9 News.
2 important developments for Australia today. 70% of over 16s are now double jabbed and boosters on the way for aged care residents. But the fury of a small group of anti-vaxxers is raising concerns about the safety of state and federal MPs. Here's Chris Ullman.
Public life comes with privileges and costs.
The lives of my children were threatened quite openly some years ago. And that it was a matter of great concern.
The Health Minister's composure cracked over a question about threats made against the Northern Territory Chief Minister, and the threats are not rare.
I've had the police in my house with their guns drawn, clearing rooms to ensure that an intruder wasn't there.
And to honour the service of a British MP murdered by a constituent, the Australian Parliament rose today for a moment's silence. Amid increasingly bitter public debates, the security of parliamentarians is being reviewed. And after suffering a torrent of abuse over the slow vaccine rollout, at least Greg Hunt's day job is getting a little easier.
Australia has now passed the 70% double-dosed vaccination rate.
The Prime Minister believes that turns the politics back in his favour.
As Australia's vaccination rate surged to what we expect will be, Mr Speaker, one of the highest vaccination rates of anywhere in the world.
And once health regulators give the nod, booster shots of the Pfizer vaccine will be offered to those in aged care.
We want to commence that in the second week of November, subject to advice.
Results from overseas are promising.
This is safe, it is effective in all age groups.
And the news has been welcomed.
We've done really exceptionally well. However, you know, we can't let our guard drop.
Chris Ullman, 9 News.
Britain could be heading for its fourth wave of COVID-19. There were 223 coronavirus deaths in the past 23 hours, its highest daily toll since March. Case numbers have soared in October, consistently exceeding 40,000 a day, but the government insists it has no plans to bring in restrictions just yet. As Melbourne prepares for Freedom Friday, many of us may be feeling nervous emerging from lockdown. Experts say social anxiety is normal, but warn it could lead to a rise in burnout. Stay tuned for our special report, including useful tips to help you cope, later in 9 News. New South Wales has been pummeled by giant hailstones and destructive winds, causing widespread damage. Kate Creedon tells us the SES is responding to hundreds of calls for help on the mid-north coast.
It was quick but powerful. A perfect storm dumping giant hailstones on the mid-north coast.
I really do not want to be here right now.
Across Coffs Harbour, commuters were caught off guard. Tormina transformed into a snowfield, a pretty path of destruction. At the local shops, the ceiling collapsed under the weight of the water. Chaos too in the car park.
It's like we're in a war bloody zone.
Shoppers had to wade through the mess to get back to their cars. This unlucky woman returning to find her car beneath a fallen tree. At Boambi, backyards were buried. Residents of this home could only watch on as their driveway turned into a creek. The SES has already received more than 200 calls for help, mostly for leaking roofs and broken windows. The clean-up expected to take days.
Trade has been massively down over the last 2 weeks. This is just obviously something more that we've got to deal with. So yeah, look, it's very tough at the moment.
Kate Creedon, 9 News.
Blue skies here in Melbourne today. Lavinia's catching the last rays of the sun at South Yarra. The weather's picking up, isn't it, ahead of Freedom Friday, Lavinia?
Oh, who needs Queensland, Pete? It's been absolutely glorious here today. And just as much of Melbourne is getting ready to hit the hairdressers, the beauticians and pop on some party clothes, the city seems to be doing the same thing. It's shaken off the grey and is back in its blue sky best. And that pushed the temperature to 23 degrees just after 5:30 this afternoon. And the good news is the warmer weather will stay with us until Friday, but it may have peaked a little too early with showers forecast to arrive in the afternoon. I'll have those details along with tomorrow's forecast later in the bulletin, Pete.
Thank you so much, Lavinia. Commercial quantities of ice, cocaine and cannabis seized as police swoop in coordinated raids across the state. Exclusive pictures next, plus chilling video of a woman moments after she stabbed her husband to death, and how thrill seekers could soon zip across the Yarra.
9 News, brought to you by Allianz. Behind you for what's ahead.
A 20-year-old has been charged with attempted murder after a frightening stabbing attack in a Brunswick supermarket. A checkout attendant and a security guard were injured in the Monday morning frenzy. Both were taken to hospital. Accused Rory McCauley has been remanded in custody until February 9. A drug trafficking syndicate has been uncovered operating inside a converted warehouse at Moorabbin. Almost $300,000 worth of cocaine, ice and cannabis were seized. Crime reporter Lana Murphy with this exclusive report.
He's the alleged mastermind behind a sophisticated crime syndicate. But mastering his own arrest,
Jesus, parked it a bit high.
Got off to a rocky start. This 55-year-old is accused of being the kingpin in the manufacturing and trafficking of drugs through Melbourne's southeast. His residence, a converted warehouse in Moorabbin, raided by detectives and dogs this morning. There, they uncovered more than $280,000 worth of cocaine, $65,000 in cash and 2 samurai swords. But that's not all.
Quantities of cannabis, methamphetamine, pills, what we believe to be ecstasy, a pill press.
2 women, also aged in their 50s, were arrested at the property. One bailed.
I'm rummaging through everything, my purse, my keys.
The other questioned over her home in Yallourn, where police will allege a clandestine laboratory was set up. In total, 5 buildings were raided around 9 a.m. Most arrests were in Moorabbin, but a 37-year-old Hampton man was also found in possession of cocaine and cash.
It is organised crime. They're out there to traffic drugs out on the streets.
For 12 months, detectives have been investigating this syndicate, and what was uncovered here today is more than even they expected. But the work isn't over. There are more players in their sights.
It's a message to anyone out there that believes that they can make a cheap buck by trafficking drugs.
The alleged drug boss will need to face up to a magistrate in court tomorrow. He's staring down the prospect of up to 25 years in prison. Lana Murphy, 9 News.
Disturbing video has been played to a British court of a woman calmly confessing to stabbing her husband to death. Penelope Jackson says she was abused throughout their 24 years of marriage and she'd simply had enough. This report from Brett McLeod.
Penelope Jackson wanted Somerset police in no doubt what she'd done.
He's on the kitchen floor.
Okay.
I admit it all.
Inside, her 78-year-old husband, retired Lieutenant Colonel David Jackson, was dead on the floor. Penelope had called emergency services herself.
I'm in the lounge and he's in the kitchen bleeding to death with any luck. I might just go and stab him again, but...
All right, do not stab him again. How many times have you stabbed him?
3 times.
3 times, okay.
Once I thought I'd get his heart. Well, he hasn't got one.
When first responders arrived, the retired accountant kept the same calm, almost flippant demeanour.
Get the ambulance in, pronto. We need CPR. No, please don't. Yeah, we need the ambulance in. Should have stabbed him a bit more. With any luck, he'll be too late.
Right.
Ms Jackson says after a meal for her birthday in February this year, the pair argued.
He's an aggressive bully and nasty, and I've had enough. And when he said you wouldn't do it, I did it twice more.
She says her husband was violent and controlling. Her murder trial has also heard Mr Jackson had feared his wife of 25 years would attack him.
I know what I've done, and I know why I've done it, and if I haven't done it properly, I'm really annoyed.
In London, Brett McLeod, 9 News.
A miracle in Texas where incredibly 21 people on board a private plane have survived this inferno. The aircraft lost power as it tried to take off from Houston. Passengers and crew leapt to safety after it crashed and caught fire. Amazingly, only a few suffered slight injuries. A silent fleet of rusting warships has emerged from under the sea, where battle raged more than 75 years ago. These Japanese vessels, captured by the American Navy, were used to create an artificial harbour during the invasion of Iwo Jima in 1945. They've been raised by volcanic action on the outlying island. The battle for Iwo Jima was one of the bloodiest of the Pacific campaign, remembered in the photograph of US Marines raising their flag. Up until now, the only way to get across the Yarra is by bridge or boat, but as Alan Rascal discovered, there'll soon be a new heart-thumping option.
It's time to zip across the Yarra. The Firefly zip line is coming.
There will be 2 lines, so a dual zip line over the Yarra River so you can zip side by side with a friend or a partner.
It'll run from Federation Square to Alexandra Gardens, thrill seekers zipping along a 130-metre span over the river, 9 metres above the water, all while reaching speeds of 40 kilometres an hour. The new attraction set to lure people back into the city.
We really want Fed Square to be the start of your journey
into the city of Melbourne, and what a way to start the journey.
Zip lines feature in other cities around the world, most notably Las Vegas.
Oh my God.
The line, not the first thing to fly across the Yarra. Many have tried it in the famous Birdman Rally. Lord Mayor Sally Capp wanting to be the first one to try out the new attraction.
I can't wait to get a new perspective of Melbourne as I go flying literally through the air.
Let's hope she doesn't end up like then London Mayor Boris Johnson, left dangling from a zip wire while promoting the Olympics. The pop-up attraction will operate from the 1st of December to December 28. Tickets cost $39 for kids and $49 for adults. So why settle for looking across the river when you can fly across the river? Just have to overcome a fear of heights and get a bit of practice in first. Woohoo! Alan Ruskell, 9 News.
Coming up, are you ready for Freedom Friday? Experts give their tips on how to cope with post-lockdown jitters. Plus, an abandoned car sends a passenger train off the rails, and why 2 unlucky police officers have been forced to delay their wedding again. As Melburnians prepare to emerge from lockdown, plenty are feeling anxious about socialising again. Psychologists warn it might take some time to readjust to the new way of life. Neri Tai with the story.
For an introvert like Michael Zito, working from the comfort of his home has been a blessing in disguise.
Being able to concentrate and not be in a noisy office all the time.
But getting ready to step back into the real world is daunting.
You got to try and look normal again.
While the 35-year-old graphic designer is excited to see family this weekend, he says it'll be hard to have a normal conversation with friends, let alone know how to act.
Some people are going to want to go instantly in for the hug, other people won't feel so, comfortable doing that.
Psychologists say emerging from lockdown can cause social anxiety.
We've been conditioned for 2 years that leaving the house, seeing our friends, going to work, catching up with people has been dangerous and not safe.
63-year-old Danny Phillips says she's more nervous about going to a restaurant than returning to the office.
It's like a fear of the unknown, a bit tentative about it because there's so many people that don't want to follow the rules.
While it's hard not to compare our situation with other cities around the world that have returned to a sense of normality, especially our neighbours in New South Wales, bouncing back out of lockdown will be challenging. But experts say it's okay to set boundaries with families, and it's about taking one step at a time. The advice is to go at your own pace. Not wanting to see friends and family straight away is normal. Don't get caught up with how your life was pre-lockdown, but look ahead and speak to a psychologist by booking an appointment through your GP.
With everything this city's had thrown at it, we've all managed to adjust eventually.
Neri Tai, 9 News.
The driver of a stolen van who caused a train to derail near Wollongong is still on the run. The 4-carriage service slammed into the vehicle at Kembla Grange in the early hours of the morning. The train driver, 2 passengers and a guard suffered minor injuries. The price of Bitcoin has surged to within reach of a new high, while one of the year's favourite stocks has cooled its jets. Business reporter Chris Kohler.
Bitcoin was trading above $85,000 today, and it was because a new way to invest in cryptocurrency through the share market was approved on Wall Street overnight, putting a lot of focus back on digital coins. The local market gained 0.5%, touching a 5-week benchmark. Banks and miners pushed the index higher, but coal miners really struggled after China said it'll boost its output. And crowd favourite Flight Centre hit some turbulence today after revealing it's burning through almost $40 million a month at the moment. That had investors heading for the exits. And the conventional currency had another good day today. The Aussie is hitting 75 US cents.
2 of the force's finest might have just taken the mantle as Victoria's unluckiest cops after their wedding was called off due to a COVID-positive offender. Arissa had been working her final shift before the big day when she made an arrest that would put all plans on hold.
So Arissa had called me and said, I've got some bad news, and I knew what that bad news was going to be, and my heart just sunk.
After being deemed a close contact, Arissa now faces 14 days of isolation. But the senior constables say there's a silver lining. The postponement means more guests will be allowed to attend when it happens. Now returning with sport, Tony Jones.
Thanks, Pete. Hello again. Ben Simmons' fall from grace is now in free fall. Also coming up, the Cox Plate trainer battling her own race, a race to get here. An Aussie stalwart calls stumps on his career, and the soccer fan who might have been over the limit. Racing first up, and Sydney-based trainer Annabelle Neesham still hasn't given up hope of being trackside at Moonee Valley to saddle up her Cox Plate favourite Zaki. Although Neesham has two runners in the great race, it's Zaki who's fueling the nerves. Corey Norris with more.
As the sun rises across Port Phillip Bay, a number of spring hopefuls head for the beach. Among them, a couple of stablemates, including a 7-year-old gelding who's preparing for the biggest race of his life.
He knows what it's all about. He enjoys getting out in the water, and then when it comes to race day, he gets on his toes a bit more.
Assistant trainer Todd Pollard on the phone updating his boss Annabelle Neesham in Sydney, who's got her hands full trying to get south.
They're changing all the times, the restrictions, and I think Sydney might now be an orange zone. Look, I'll be doing my best to get down there if I can.
Neesham only started training in her own right 14 months ago. Now she's on the verge of a career-defining moment.
It's very special, a bit nerve-wracking to dream of being in this position. When you've got, the favourite, and he's been favourite for a long time, there feels like it's more pressure than nerves, I suppose. And it's that expectation.
He may have found the going tough 11 days ago, but with James McDonald on board, Neesham is confident Zaki can bounce back at the Valley.
He's the best jockey in Australia, and he's prepared to go and spend a week in isolation to ride my horse. So that's pretty special, and pretty sure he wouldn't be doing it if he didn't think he was a big chance of winning.
With all the hype around Zaki, Neesham's other runner is flying under the radar. Moanga is rated a $14 chance, and there's a bit of a Winks connection.
He's got Hugh Bowman on board, who probably knows how to win the Cox Plate more than any other jockey in the race.
Now to keep her emotions in check.
God, to win it, I sort of daren't think about it too much because it's within reach.
Corey Norris, 9 News.
With a gutsy victory in Geelong, Charlie Rose booked her spot in the Melbourne Cup, and with it sent a big warning to her rivals. The Simon Wilde trained mare held off a stunning challenge from Dr. Drill.
The mare has to lift. Tralee Rose just in front of Dr. Drill. Tralee Rose a neck Dr. Drill. Tralee Rose won the Geelong Cup.
Tralee Rose is now a $13 chance for the Cup. A run of injuries has reportedly ended in the retirement of speedster James Pattinson at test level. The 31-year-old has told selectors not to consider him for this summer, ending a test career that realised 81 wickets at an average of 26.
Edge to take it.
Pattinson will still play for Victoria at Shield level. The already ugly spat between Ben Simmons and the 76ers has taken a spiteful turn. On the eve of Philly's season opener, the Aussie was kicked out of practice, then suspended, with one commentator describing him as cancerous. Clint Stanaway has the latest.
He doesn't want to play ball, that's as clear as day. But if Ben Simmons wants sympathy, he's not getting it.
A disruptive, dare I say, cancerous force.
After refusing to take part in a defensive drill, Simmons was booted from the practice court.
We told him to go home.
He was also suspended for the 76ers season opener in New Orleans for what the club says is conduct detrimental to the team.
At this point, I don't care about that man, honestly. He does whatever he wants. At the end of the day, our job is not to babysit somebody.
And legends of the game like Shaq and Barkley didn't miss either.
Just because we pay certain guys a lot of money doesn't mean you're a great player. You should want to be a better basketball player because that's your profession. That's your job.
The 76ers adamant they'll only trade him if the deal allows them to remain a championship contender.
As a coach, I have to protect the team. The team first.
The contrast couldn't be more extreme in Oklahoma, where 19-year-old Josh Giddey is preparing to make his NBA debut.
The expectations on us aren't as high to win championships or to win games. It's more about developing our group.
And watching from Melbourne tomorrow morning, proud dad Warwick, himself a gun basketballer back in the day with the Tigers.
We're definitely a little bit apprehensive and nervous for him, but saying that, I'm sure he's just feeling bulletproof like any 19-year-old kid.
Giddey is one of 7 Aussie players in the NBA this season, a star-studded list that includes Paddy Mills.
Mills got a three.
The Boomers captain knocking down 21 points in Brooklyn's loss to Milwaukee. Clint Stanaway, 9 News.
An agitated Jurgen Klopp has fired up after a handshake snub from a rival manager. The Atletico Madrid manager made a swift exit after their 3-2 loss to the Reds. And Klopp certainly didn't want to talk about it.
I can understand that he was running inside. He's emotional, I'm emotional, and you are not a nice person because you want to make a story of that. You said I'm angry. You said I'm angry. When was I angry? I'm now angry because of your question.
About serious.
Ooh, the win puts Liverpool at the top of Group B. Now, whether we like it or not, it's not uncommon. It's a bit of a thing to see a beer or two at sporting events. Bob Hawke made his love of the amber fluid a tradition at the SCG this summer. And even Stephen May grabbed a beer in Perth to celebrate that premiership. But what about this bloke at a soccer match in the Netherlands, carrying no less than 48 beers? The good news is he didn't spill a drop. Fair to say if he had have, 47 of his mates would have been the ones doing the shouting. And we can laugh, but at 11:59 tomorrow night, we'll be seeing a fair bit of that going on in Melbourne.
I think you're right. Thank you, Tony. Great stuff. Well, it's time now to check back with Lavinia in South Yarra. We can expect it to stay very mild tonight, Lavinia.
It's a beautiful evening, Pete. Curfew can't end soon enough. Cloud is expected to move in tonight, trapping in the warmth of the day, so the city's only forecast to drop to 14 degrees. I'll have tomorrow's forecast along with the all-important Freedom Friday weather next. Hello again, and Melbourne is getting herself into tip-top shape ahead of Freedom Friday. Under blue skies, the city has looked an absolute picture today, and the mercury kept working until 5:36 this afternoon, peaking at 23 degrees. It's been even warmer north of the city. Epping and Yarra Glen got to 24, 23 at Essendon, Moorabbin, Ringwood and Tullamarine. Geelong and Frankston reached 22. Easterly breezes pushed a few showers through Gippsland today, and they also kept it a little cooler than the rest of the state, but elsewhere most locations climbed into the low to mid-20s. Mildura warmed up to 28. There's a lot going on in the satellite picture today. Troughs are triggering more storms along the east coast. Yesterday, areas near Mackay were hit with record-breaking 16-centimetre hailstones. Today, the Mackay airport has been lashed with wind gusts of 120 kilometres an hour. For us, a system is moving across the Bight, but it's weakening as it approaches, and it'll have very little impact tomorrow, just some high cloud and the slight chance of a few spots of rain. And while Freedom Friday will start out warm and dry, showers will develop through the afternoon, becoming heavier overnight. Tonight, the increasing cloud will keep it nice and mild right across the state, with most locations forecast to stay in double figures, and it'll be particularly warm through the west with minimums in the mid-teens. Then under warm northerly breezes, daytime temperatures will climb into the mid to high teens. Mildura will break the 30-degree barrier, heading for 32. Melbourne is also in for a lovely mild night. Ferny Creek is the only suburb expected to drop below 10 degrees, only just though, a low of 9 and then a top of 19. Elsewhere it'll stay in double figures, mostly 12 and 13, and Werribee should only drop to 14 before reaching 24. There'll be widespread maximums of 23 and 24, and Geelong should do a little better, heading for 26, but it will be a little windier than today, with northerlies averaging 25 to 40 kilometres an hour. Then another mild night, and if you plan on celebrating from midnight, it should still be around 18 or 19 degrees. It's only expected to drop to 15 around dawn, and it'll be a dry start to Friday with breaks of sunshine and a top of 24. But showers are expected to arrive around 4 or 5 in the afternoon. They'll increase to rain later in the night, with up to 10 millimetres falling by midnight. Then another 8 on Saturday, but the bulk of that should fall in the early hours. Then just some patchy showers clearing in the early afternoon. It'll be cooler though, a cloudy top of 16. A light shower or two on Sunday and 16 again, and we'll be stuck in a run of 16-degree days. Heading there again on Monday, but it should stay dry. Picking up on Tuesday, partly cloudy and 20. And look at next Wednesday, a mostly sunny top of 27. So we're all getting very excited about Friday, Pete. Not long to go now.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, Lavinia. And Melbourne, that's what's news this Wednesday. Tracy's next with a current affair. Enjoy your evening and good night.